Hello everyone. Today we're going to be drawing George the polar bear, the main character from the book No Place Like Home by Ronno Joy Gosh. The image we're going to be drawing is this image. It's the last closing page with George holding an icy pole. As we get started, there's a few things you will need. You will need a light blue piece of A4 paper, a white pencil or crayon, a grey lead, an eraser, a black marker, a piece of small white paper, as well as some textures or some crayons. The first step is to sort of outline the shape of George. So his hand is a bit of a rectangle with a circle on top. His head and body is a little bit like a giant trapezium. Rectangle ears, a trapezium nose with a curve down the bottom. And you've got his little wavy mouth there, two tiny little dot eyes. Do this in grey lead and then later we can rub it out once we've finalised in permanent marker. Now I'm starting to go back in and add his fingers on his hand. It's a closed fist, so it's still sort of a circular form. You just need to add in his thumbs and a little bit more of his finger detail. Once you've finished creating his gripped hand, I start to give a little bit of an outline of where I'd like the icy pole to be sitting. And now it's time to go around the outline of George with your permanent marker. Notice I'm taking my time as I'm going around and finalising the lines I'd like to keep, because I can always erase the other grey lead lines that I don't want to use. And I'm changing his fingers a little bit as to how I had them, making them a little bit different. Now I drew my icy pole. This is a step you don't need to do. I totally forgot that I was going to be adding on my white paper. So you don't need to outline your icy pole with a permanent marker. Once you've outlined George, your next step is to be getting a white piece of paper, and I use something called the flip method. So I put my sheet of paper on top of the image I'd like to draw, and I flip the page to get the rough outline and rough positioning of my object. This is also something animators use when they're going in between two separate frames of an image. Now that I'm happy with the outline of my icy pole, I begin to cut it out because I'm going to be pasting this on top of my bear. I check the positioning of my icy pole and I trace where the hand is going to grip it, so I've got the right cuts down the bottom. Once I'm happy with the shape of my icy pole, I have a look at the actual image and I start to get my colours ready. So I need red, blue, purple, green and yellow, and I'm using a scrap piece of white paper just for the background so I can do this really quickly without making a mess on my image. Once I'm finished colouring, I get some glue and I start to paste my icy pole in place. Okay, next up it's time to get the eraser and rub out any of those graphite and grey lead lines. Okay, next we have a good look at the picture, and as you can see we've got these tiny little lines of white and they move around George's body to represent his fur. It's time for me to now get my white pencil and try to recreate these lines. It's really important you look at the direction of the lines because they go around his ears, around his eyes and around his mouth and then flow down from his body. Going to full forward this a little bit. I struggle a little bit with my sharpener as well because it's really important to have a sharp pencil or crayon when you're drawing your little lines. You don't want it to turn out to be one big straight line. You want it to be a dotted line. You repeat the lines over and over, all over his body and all up his arms. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit because it does take a little bit of time. And there you have it, our final piece. George, the grumpy polar bear, not so grumpy this time with his icy pole. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Give it a go. Take care. See you next time.